right, I think we're ready to start.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thumbs up.
All right. Good evening, folks. My name is Lori Weisenberger, and we will begin this meeting of the Owatonna School Board. Today is Monday, gosh, what is it, June 24th? Eric, attendance?
Yep, Mark, Jelaine, and Aaron will not be with us this evening.
And all of those we have certainly expected, so no surprises there. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 3 on the agenda tonight is an approval of the agenda.
I move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Elstead, item 4, our mission moment for tonight.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. Tonight it is my pleasure to lift up, and I'm putting it into our strategic direction of high quality teaching and learning and really lifting up our retirees from the district this year. So I'm going to read their names tonight. I know we don't have any of them present with us tonight. They're probably enjoying the retired life already, but just want to read them. So Rolf Olson, who has been around the district for a long time. In fact, he was a classroom teacher for 30 years and then took on different roles with custodial help and so on, has finally retired. So Rolf Olson, Julie Johnson, Jeff Ayers, Julie Brown, Cindy Pelton, Dana Votter, Doug Wanyas, Beth Owens, Beth Filzen, and Katie Holzerland. Many of these retirees, especially that are teachers, began their careers in Owatonna and stayed here for the entirety of their career, including Katie Holzerland, who was a kindergarten teacher at Lincoln. And Katie started her teaching career here in 1987 and taught till just this past spring. So again, I just really am grateful for their leadership, the commitment and passion that they have put into the Owatonna Public Schools for decades. And again, it's worthy tonight to mention that when we say we're inspiring excellence for every learner every day, these folks are certainly part of that excellence. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we certainly will miss them. We know many of them, of course, personally. And congratulations to them and upward and onward for us, right? Turning to public forum. Sarah, do we have any comments? All right. We'll move on to item 6, general information. So for the board's information, you saw that information in your packet, enrollment reports we see routinely. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll move on from there. Item 7, these are all for discussion. Now, no action on the next 3 items or so. Mr. Elstead, can I turn it, is our guest here?
Yeah,
Maybe not.
I was just going to say our presenter from Ehlers is not quite here yet. He's en route. And so if I could just ask for, maybe we could go through a couple of other items and then come back to that if that's okay during information
Absolutely.
items. Thank
Absolutely. Let's go on to item B, board forum. Elizabeth, can I start on your end, please?
Sure. Just that I will be absent for the July meeting. And my 2021 OHS graduate got married last Friday.
Oh, congratulations to you. That's awesome. You've been busy then on many fronts, yes.
That's great.
All right. Eric, anything from you?
Nothing for tonight.
All right. Turn to you, Tim.
One thing I probably didn't mention at our work session, I had the opportunity to be at the ALC graduation again this year. And
Nice.
It's just kind of a highlight for me to go be part of that and see all those kids that have worked hard and kind of followed a different path but found their way to a graduation and a diploma. So it's just,
Great.
It's kind of uplifting.
Good for you. Sorry to have missed that one.
See our band represented up there in the picture. They looked outstanding.
Did you attend the parade? Is that
Yes.
what you're, yeah. And no rain?
I haven't missed it in 6 years.
For you. Excellent. Glad to hear it. All right, let's look, just move quickly to item B1. I don't know if there are any school board committee meeting reports. There were some in your packet, I believe, for review. We will maybe just move on. The work session report is also in your packet. And then policy revisions, again, I don't know, Tim, did you have any kind of comments from the policy committee?
Yeah, again, just kind of, pretty much everything that's a first reading was either just reflecting legislative changes that came through MSBA, or were just wording changes. There really isn't much that's of substance at changing the policies at all, but just making them right with the mandates or just updating wording. So I don't know if anybody has anything in particular, but they weren't that interesting.
Well, and Sarah does a nice job of summarizing those at the outset there for you, so please take a look at those before our next meeting in case there are any concerns or questions, so.
Quick question on those,
Of
Lori.
course.
So I was just wondering, because it's the student discipline policy, corporal punishment, bullying prohibition, at what point or some point do we get any incident reports or things like, how do we know these policies are effective in doing what our schools need them to do?
So as of at the end of June, for July 1st, we are responsible for doing something called the Discipline Incident Reporting System. And so we upload all of our incidents into the program, and then Department of Education disaggregates that data for us and will send it back to us. That will be part of our data retreat.
Great.
Coming up in late October, early November. But it takes them a little while to disaggregate all of that. So, and of course, there are a number of things impacting that this year, including that there was no suspensions for K-3 students that were allowed by law. And so all of that will be pulled apart and will be available at that data retreat.
And will that be an annual thing?
The data retreat?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or no.
Oh.
Sorry, where the reporting and we get the summary.
Yes, that has been annual for a number of years. We do have that data, but the only thing that we really release publicly is the number of incidents because of some of them. And we can differentiate between them, but any further digging puts it at risk of data privacy, so.
Sure.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right, then, I think with that, we finished the policy revisions, or folks will look at that. Shall we step back to item A? Are we ready?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Matt Hammer is here from Ehlers Financial tonight. And Matt, I'll ask you to actually come up to the table here. There is a presentation that was put into your folder that should be up for you, and you can actually advance them using, I think, the mouse or the, yep, there you go. So again, Matt's here from Ehlers. At our work session, his colleague Jeff Seeley was here, kind of stepping in, and there were some questions, and so we wanted to bring Matt back to explain kind of what's being proposed with a potential bond project that and the tax impact therein. So I'll let Matt take it from here. Thank you.
Matt Hammer, financial advisor for the district.
Hang on
Excuse
one
me,
second, Matt. Why don't you have the microphone?
Microphone on you.
Right here. Sorry, thanks, Matt. We'll have to start again.
I know, in the fan.
Okay, I think we're ready now, right? Everybody hear me?
Bring it a little closer to you if you can, Matt. That's,
Yeah.
there we go. Perfect.
So good evening, everybody. Matt Hammer, financial advisor with Ehlers. This evening, we're going to summarize some of the information that was presented and then answer any questions that the board may have about the proposed projects that are being proposed as part of some of the work that SiteLogic has done. I have a brief presentation that we'll just go over to provide some of the highlights, and then we can take any questions as part of the process at the end. Our agenda really is that we're going to touch on the district's funding, specifically long-term facilities maintenance funding. And every year the district's approving those 10-year plan documents that the board's accustomed to seeing. And as part of that, the district's identified some projects that can be funded as part of that overall plan. But I think we'll also just talk about that as a whole, a little bit, touching on the district has some limited funds as part of that program. And as the high school is coming online, those funds are actually likely going to decrease a little bit as part of that overall program as well. And then we'll talk about the overall financing of the proposed projects. There's two components. The component that we're proposing to fund through the long-term facilities maintenance program, but then the statutory change that's come about with a law change that's happened since the vote happened back in 2019. And then just high level talk about the tax implications for the proposed property owners as part of the overall plan. When we start, when we think of school funding and for school districts across the state, most people think about the general education formula, but the long-term facilities maintenance revenue program was something that was newer to school districts that started in about 2015. And prior to that time, school districts in Minnesota really didn't have a lot of revenue that was dedicated towards facilities projects. And in its infancy, this program actually started at less than $380 per student. It phased in over a 3-year period, and now it's been at that $380 per student level since about fiscal 18, so it hasn't moved since that time. That's about $2 million in funding that the school district gets on an annual basis to put towards projects. You get that full funding as long as your average building age across all of your square footage stays above 35 years of age on average. So the district has been receiving that full funding, but with the high school coming online over the next couple of years, we're looking at about a $250,000 reduction in that funding as that average square footage drops below that 35 years of age. With that, projects also can be approved for projects that are over $100,000 per site. Those 3 areas that the legislature has authorized school districts, and this was actually in place prior to the LTFM program, so school districts have been able to look at these types of projects as part of what was called the old alternative facilities program as well. But those 3 areas are indoor air quality, which this is what we're talking about, the McKinley project, fire suppression projects, and then asbestos removal. And the 2 areas, there is some asbestos removal as part of the project that we're talking about as well. Those qualifying projects that have been identified are about $5.8 million. And we'll talk about how we plan to fund that as part of the information that we have as we move forward. The other component that we're going to touch on is a legislative change that has happened since the 2019 election. And that change, when we think of the ballot that was presented to voters, that the ballot said $112 million of authority. When the bonds were issued at the time, there was an overriding limitation on what could be deposited in a construction fund. And since that time, that limitation has been removed, which leaves about $1,970,000 of authority that the district can access to put towards projects. And districts across the state of Minnesota have been utilizing this authority as they're trying to close out projects district-wide that meet the specifications that were put forward in the ballot. And if you think of the ballot, overriding question said acquisition and betterment of sites and facilities, so there's very broad authority for the district to get some needed work done in the district as you look at trying to get your facilities plan in a good place when you kind of look forward from a long-range perspective.
Can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question? So I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this whole concept. So the 5.8 million comes from where? Okay, so that's the estimated cost for.
Yeah, so that's the McKinley project. That's about $5.6 million, and then about $5.3 million, and there's about another $300,000 of asbestos abatement that the district was looking to incorporate into the project.
Okay,
And then the bond amount, that's the bond amount with cost of issuance and other things that go into getting us to the 5.8 authorized amount. So when we think of that, right, that authorized amount would be about 5.8 million, but when we would get to sell, there's likely going to be a reoffering premium and other types of things that will be part of that bond sale. But if we were authorizing the board to make sure we had enough money for the construction fund, that would be the authorized amount that would go on the approval that would come back in July.
And maybe I can just clarify, I think it's more than just McKinley, isn't it the OEC as well? Or
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
it's the OEC and the McKinley?
okay.
Yep.
Yep. And then
Thanks for
just
that, Clay.
in the very beginning, the LTFM revenue, so that 380 per student, is that coming from the state?
There's a portion that comes through local levy and a portion that comes through state aid. So that's been part of your levy since it's been in place.
Got it.
And about 50% of it comes through aid and about 50% comes through local levy.
Okay. And then the 100,000 or more per site is based on need?
It's based on authority if the projects qualify under the statute, which these projects do qualify under the statute for additional levy authority if they meet those three areas with indoor air quality, either asbestos removal or fire suppression.
Okay.
And those will be incorporated into the 10-year plan, and then the Department of Education approves those projects, right? So there's a narrative that gets submitted that the district would work with SiteLogic to prepare and get submitted to the department for approval.
So then, because I believe the pool project costs are going to be included in the total once we get further down. So assuming then that would be utilized with the 1.9 million of the voter approved from the 2019 election.
That's
Does
the
that sound
idea, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so when we get to the bottom line, right, so the 5.8 million that we talked about plus the 1,970,000, that's a total bond amount of 7,770,000 in total. And when we look at that structuring, the gray bars in this bar represent the district's existing commitments, that including the high school that's being paid. And then the orange in the white bar there represents the new bonds that would be structured on top of that existing debt. So we're looking at a 16-year repayment period or 16 tax levies to repay the bonds. When we look at factors that are going on, and we've incorporated this into part of our planning, based on preliminary information that we get from MNDOR, preliminarily the district's overall tax base is expected to grow by about 8%, and that's market value. And we know that some of that's going to be existing properties, right? So that's existing assessment growth with businesses in commercial property, agricultural, so on and so forth. It's going to differ based on your property and how the assessors assessed it. But we're also trying to look at capturing the district's tax, other pieces that are going on in the tax base, and this is probably the more important piece that we're looking at when we set those increases or assumed increases in the district's overall tax base with new business, new homes, and improvements to homes. So when we think of improvements to homes, it'd be people doing remodeling, and that was a common thing that was happening when rates were really low, where people were making improvements to their existing properties with either home equity lines and making those improvements, so on and so forth. But you also have new homes that are going up in the district, as well as new businesses. So those new properties help to offset the taxes for existing property owners, and that's part of what's been going on as we look at the district's tax rates over a period of time. So when we think of the district's overall levy, which is different than other municipalities, most of that revenue is generated by enrollment. Or the district's debt service levy, which is fixed. So if we think of that chart that I was just on, those debt service levies were set at the time the bonds were sold as part of the high school project, and that debt service levy remains consistent over the period of time. Also with district's enrollment, as your district's enrollment has been on a slow decline a little bit, those levies, or overall levies, have been coming down, albeit that there's some mixes that are happening when we think of state aid. But overall, the district's not receiving any additional revenue as the district's tax base is growing. So as new properties come on, that's helping offset taxes for existing property owners, and that's been happening over the last number of years since the bond has been approved back in 2019. That started with taxes payable 20. When we look at our plan, we're assuming some growth, and this is the growth that we're really trying to capture, is that growth that's for new business, new homes, and improvements. So as that plays out, when we look at the tax impact for the proposed plan, and this is the both components, the total of the two bonds is 7.7 million. Our assumed interest rate right now is 4.75%. That still likely has some cushion in it as we have taken some sales yet this week even. And then we're looking at a 16-year repayment period. Each of those properties is classified into a different property classification type. We start with the residential homesteads, and you can see the tax implication. I'll just point out the $250,000 home. That's about average right now for the school district. We're looking at about a minus $3 annually for the residential homestead. And I'll talk a little bit of how that's kind of playing out as part of the overall plan. You can see commercial on a $500,000 commercial property is about $65 a year, and then you can see the ag tax impact, and I'll just touch on $11,000 an acre, which is about a 12-cent increase per acre for that property for an ag homestead. A couple things that I want to touch on here. One, there's the homestead exclusion that was talked about a little bit. That's a dynamic that's changing between taxes payable 24 and 25. That homestead market exclusion has been increased from $76,000 to $95,000 start, and that goes up to now $517,002, which was topped out of about $435,000 previously. So there's some impact going there. The other piece on the ag homestead side, there is what we call tier 1, tier 2. That change is going on, which has been changing from about $2 million to $3.5 million. So the first tier of ag, $3.5 million of property now pays at a lower class rate, which used to be at $2 million. The other piece that I think is important to point out here is that all of this qualifies for the ag to school credit. So these bonds, with the existing bonds and the new bonds, would both qualify for that. That program came into play in 2018, and then the taxpayers or the ag property owners has been seeing that benefit since the election has passed. So when we look back to taxes payable 20, that was at a 50% level or 50% credit level on any debt service levies, and now that has been phased up, and we're accounting for that reduction at 70% as part of these tax impact estimates. So we think over time, right, and you can see it in some of the information that even was presented as part of the Truth in Taxation last December, that the ag taxes outside of valuation changes as compared to the rest of the tax base have been coming down on the district's debt service levy since that time.
So can I just
Yeah.
clarify what I think I heard you just say? All of those, particularly in the ag category, the numbers reflected in the chart already
Yep,
have
that reduction's
assumed
reflected.
those, like the ag to school credit and so forth, that we're well aware of, which is
Yep.
great and lowers the impact, right,
Yep,
for our taxpayer, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
yep. So that's part of these figures, and that's factored in.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Yes.
How many new homes do we have to actually be able to see that impact lowered?
Like how many new homes?
Yeah, how many units?
Well, the overall impact is from the overall perspective is going to be about what we're estimating here, right? We can't predict how many new homes are coming as we move forward as part of the taxes as we look forward. But this would be the estimate that we're putting forth for taxes payable 25 based on the existing conditions of properties throughout the school district.
So I have another question about
Yeah.
last time we got the two presentations, and in the MySite MySite IQ chart that was presented for our district, it said the total LTFM need for 2025 was 8.2 million, and the total bond money that's left after the fees and such is 7.6 million. So I'm just trying to understand the numbers, and maybe I might be missing something.
That's fair.
Yeah, I can't speak, I think I can speak to it, and you guys can help me on that if you want. But a portion of this is we're looking at funding with additional revenue, right? So that's about $5.8 million worth of projects. The other portion, my assumption, would be coming out of existing LTFM revenue, either through the revenue that you're going to receive, which is going to be about $2 million for FY25, and then any residual fund balance that the district has to put towards those projects.
So we would use our also, because this is on top of our existing LTFM budget, which is roughly $2 million a year. So this would be added to it to get to that amount.
And just so I understand or clarify, the reason we're doing this is because of the needs reported by the SiteLogic company, correct? Okay.
Yeah, and we do actually have a representative from SiteLogic here tonight if we have further questions. But if we were back to the work session, particularly at McKinley, we were looking at the age of the equipment that has outlasted its life cycle. And will start failing. And the other piece associated with that is the indoor air quality that's compromised as a result of that failing equipment. And so those are the big projects at McKinley. And then at the OEC, if you remember, some of that project was completed with the 2015 bond that was passed. But there was only so much money set aside for the OEC building. This indeed helps us understand that we're going to use the OEC building moving forward in the future. And so this helps sort of complete those projects.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so when you think of that overall kind of need, then the district gets roughly, it'll be a little bit less than 2 million ongoing, right? So this, when you look at your overall long-term facilities plan, really helps support that funding to get the district on track when you look at the overall needs assessment that was done for the district.
And if I might comment, the pool projects are incredibly expensive. And it's a specialty sort of construction. What we fear is that we do have a need to fix the pool right now. And without those, we just can't, it would be dysfunctional for us, non-functional. So, but we also recognize that we don't get enough long-term facility maintenance dollars on an annual basis. We would be putting off projects and deferring maintenance on other projects to finish that. And then we're playing catch up all the time. And so part of being able to access that remaining bond authority was to indeed satisfy that so we could use that as a one-time, along with other projects that might be available to us. But again, the crux of that would be used for pool.
Yeah, so overall, this is the tax implication that we're looking as part of the, as we look forward to getting the funding, as part of the plan. So this is timeline, and we looked at this slide earlier. As part of that, to get the $5.8 million approved as part of the plan, the district would include those debt service levies as part of your long-term facilities maintenance program or your long-term facilities maintenance plan that gets us submitted to the state of Minnesota. That's scheduled to happen at your July 15th meeting. We would incorporate those debt service levies as part of that plan, and then we're not looking to sell the bonds until sometime closer to when those funds would be needed, because there's no sense in paying interest on the bonds until we actually need the funds. So we'd be looking at a bond sale that would incorporate both components sometime early next winter, and that's typically a good time to be out in the market. And we always are monitoring those things based on market conditions, but it's normally a good time to be out in the market early in a calendar year because for various factors that are going on in the bond markets. And then those funds would be in hand to put towards projects for next summer is the concept.
All right.
So with that.
Yes, thank you so much. Complicated topics, but important to fully understand, so I appreciate you coming back and helping us. Any other questions tonight? Again, there's no action on this item formally tonight, so you can still ponder and ask Mr. Elstead or whomever if you have further questions. All right, with that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for driving down in the rain. All right. Moving back then, we are on item 8. Mr. Elsted, can we turn to you for the administrative report?
Yes, I'll keep it brief this evening. Just a couple of things that I want to highlight for you. The biggest item is that at close of day tomorrow, the district office on Bridge Street will be closed. And there's a couple of timelines I want to make sure that the board is aware of, as well as members in our community. One of them is from Wednesday morning through July 2nd, close of day on July 2nd, the district will not have any operational phones because we have to move the servers from the current district office to the new district office, and that all of our phones are operated within the internet. So we will not have phones, nor will we have access with any of our Wi-Fi or anything like that in any of our buildings. And so the district office will be closed, as well as all of our other buildings will be closed, probably through the July 4th week, for sure. We are looking at, so July 2nd is when we hope to have phones and computer service back, but we'll make sure we communicate that. But there's a couple of other pieces we put in place, one of which is if people were to call the district office number, it rolls over to a cell phone that we're using that has it goes automatically to voicemail, and the voicemail indicates, or as a message indicating, that the district cannot receive phone calls. And so it's directing people to access people through email to make sure that they get their needs met during this transition time. The district office itself will be closed to the public, the new district office, until Wednesday, July 10th. We have, we're moving servers, we're moving people. If you went to 515 West Bridge Street right now, all you'll see is boxes stacked to the ceiling in places because we're moving a lot of stuff over there. It is our hope that next week, and again, I also want to just be cognizant that it is a holiday week next week. And so we've got some people with planned vacations and so on. So we're trying to get through next week with just move in, getting things set up. We'll need a couple of days to get started, the 8th and 9th of July, to kind of get all of our systems up and running. And then we're open to the public on Wednesday, July 10th, again at the new space. So we're in a little transition here. I'm really grateful to Bob Olson and his staff for the work that they've done to put our new district office on time and on budget. It's going to be a really great space. Something I'm most excited about is having all of our folks in one space. It makes us more efficient and I think more effective as well. And so I'm looking forward to that opportunity. So that's all about the district office. I'm going to pause and ask if the board has any questions about upcoming closure and so on for us.
Maybe just one clarification. I think I heard you say that email is fully functional, so if folks need to reach staff members, that might be the best way. And of course, with vacation and the holiday,
Right.
you know, it'll be what it is. But you're open for business, but email is the best.
We've jumped into the 21st century, so our folks will be working from home because that's where they'll have most of their Wi-Fi access, or wherever they choose to work is where they're going to work. But that's the best way to contact somebody, at least for the next couple weeks, is through via email. And there will be messaging on our website. It'll be the first thing that pops up to kind of give people that information as well.
Very good.
So, and then I wanted to just a couple other comments here. Summer school update. We're ending our high school summer program tomorrow. And then when we come back, we'll start our K-5 and 6-8 summer school programs. Then we start our migrant ed program. So the year never really stops. We just keep on rolling until we get to mid-August, and that's when we kick off our activities again and get those items started. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was just really a moment of celebration. So Carmen Jurley was a girls golf state champion this year, made Owatonna proud again, and I'll lift Carmen up because she's only a sophomore, I believe, and so when Carmen comes back to school in the fall, I do want to lift her up during a mission moment. It's pretty cool to be recognized individually like that in the States, so really cool. So
Excellent.
Thank you. That's all I have tonight.
That's exciting. Thank you. All right, we will move on then to item 8, and this is the board consent agenda. Remember, we typically will approve all 3 of those items together, but we can certainly pull out any one item. If there are questions or concerns, we have the minutes from our last meeting, the disbursement report, and the personnel report, all of which were in your packets for tonight. So, Eric, this is a roll call vote.
I move that the board approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have moved and second. Eric, can you
Yep.
do the roll call, please?
Elizabeth,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and I myself as an aye. 5-0 pass.
Thank you. Moving on then to item 9. Each of these, again, require board action. There's a number of things here, and I know Mr. Elstead will help walk us through each of them, and I'm assuming folks had a chance to review the materials as well.
So item 1, you just heard the presentation about those indoor air quality projects at both McKinley and the OEC building, as well as the pool restoration and other long-term facility priorities for the school district. What you're being asked to consider approving tonight is not the funding portion of it, but you're being asked to approve the scope of work. As Matt had indicated briefly during his presentation, there's a narrative that needs to be created for the Department of Education by July 1st so that they can get their process started to make sure that they approve all those projects and so on. And then again, the financing piece will be lifted up for your consideration on the 15th of July. But again, what you're being asked to do tonight is just approve the scope of work that, again, calls out McKinley, the OEC for indoor air quality and pool restoration. And if there are any funds left over, we would be putting that into our other long-term facility needs within the district.
I can say from
Please.
Facilities Committee that we have been reviewing and going over all these documentations, and we agree with the recommendation presented to the board.
Appreciate that.
If I may add one other
Yes.
piece, and this is just maybe more from the superintendent, I'm recommending that you approve these items, and my recommendation is based upon when we were running bond campaigns, what I heard from numerous citizens in our community is that we want to make sure we're keeping our buildings up, keeping them up, doing the maintenance, taking care of them along the way, because if you look back in the history of the community, there have been a number of times we've had to defer maintenance because other things came up, emergency projects. And this is one of those items that allows us to not have to defer things, and we can keep up to date and moving forward, which is going to be better for the community in the long run because we have beautiful buildings, we've done facility improvements, and now we want to make sure that we're keeping them up.
Yep. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So I need a motion on item A, the indoor quality.
I move that the board approve the indoor air quality projects to occur at McKinley Elementary, the Owatonna Education Center, the pool restoration, and other long-term facility maintenance priorities in the amount of $7,770,000.
I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. With that, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Item B, casual worker pay. Mr. Elstead?
Yeah, thank you. Chris Pica's unavailable this evening, but she wanted to highlight for you that the casual worker pay schedule is those people that we pay to do scoreboards, to supervise events, things like that, that are not within any of our other contracts. There were 2 cells, I believe, that were improved with this actual piece within that. So about a year ago, you approved a larger group of the casual worker pay, and these are just sort of some cleanup from ones that hadn't been addressed in the last update.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the 2024-2025 casual worker pay schedule as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor with an aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item C, the 2024-25 preliminary school board schedule.
You heard from Lori Voles at our last work session, the preliminary budget. This is something that requires your approval before July 1st. And so we're right up against but we always do that. We run this right up to the end to make sure that we've justified. And Lori with her staff, has done an amazing job of kind of looking under every rock and things to make sure that the preliminary levy is certainly right on target where we wanted to land. We do know that we are going to be spending down our unapproved at this point. We have to be mindful of that, and I know that the Finance Committee walked through some of those steps as well about how that might look moving forward.
Yep.
But again, what you're being asked to consider approving tonight is just a preliminary budget for the 24-25 school year.
Excellent. And I misspoke. Thank you for correcting me.
Yep.
So yes, this is the budget, and again, we had an opportunity, both in the Finance Committee meeting, to dig into this deeply with Lori's help, and then also last time at our work session. So hopefully, we all understand what's going on. So is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the 2024-2025 preliminary budget as presented.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. I'm not sure who gets credit there, but we'll let that be. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Now we will move on to item D, the school board meeting schedule.
So what you're being asked to consider approving tonight is just a schedule that follows what we put in place for the second and fourth Mondays of each month. You'll see that the corresponding dates were listed within the packet for you. I want to just highlight a couple of nuances. One of them is because Veterans Day falls on Monday, November 11th, we are not allowed to have a board meeting on that day. We should be celebrating our veterans anyway. So that meeting would be moved to Tuesday, November 12th. Now, that does have a conflict with the city council using these chambers, and so more than likely we'll be using another space in the district for that meeting. But I want to call your attention to that. And that is a work session, by the way, anyway. And then also in May, as the fourth Monday is Memorial Day, we would be moving our meeting to Tuesday, the 27th, which is actually what we had to do this year as well because of that same situation. So again, what you're seeing is a proposed meeting schedule. Of course, as a board, you have the authority to add meetings and change dates if emergencies pop up, but we just want to make sure that we stay in line with what was approved at the last organizational meeting.
Yep. Mr. Elston, I have just one clarification. In the month of January, we often will have that org meeting early. And then do we typically follow it with a work session that same night? I don't recall. I just saw the note on here.
We have done that where we've done an organizational meeting first and followed it up with a work session.
Yep.
And again, that will be the first meeting where we may or may not be seating new board members. So again, I encourage the board to consider a work session that night because org meeting typically doesn't take that long, and having work sessions is really important for the board to try to dig into topics. So,
Sure. So at this point, we'll assume it's on the 6th, and of course, the board can make a change.
certainly could add a
Assuming
work
there's enough
session if need be.
Notice
Yep.
and so
Yep.
forth, yeah. So, all right.
I move that the board approve the 2024-2025 school board meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item E, Minnesota State High School League. Now, if I recall, Mr. Elsted, the next few here are really a result of sort of this end of fiscal year. I don't know if it's clear to you, but we're at the end of our fiscal year as a school board and district. So some of these are related to that. Any comments on the State High School League?
And as you mentioned, the Minnesota State High School League membership is a fiscal year membership, and so it comes due on July 1st. This, of course, authorizes us to participate in interscholastic activities and athletics that are sponsored by the State High School League. So pretty self-explanatory. This is one that we have been doing for a number of years,
Yes.
But I would ask for your consideration of approval.
Of course. And we enjoy the activities our students get to participate in. So is there a motion for this one, please?
I move that the board approve the 2024-2025 resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
Second.
Eric, this is a roll call?
Yep.
Actually, can I just
Of course, any discussion?
ask? Yes. So I just noticed that they're asking for representatives. They want a board representative for the high school to make decisions, an activities representative, an advisory committee, and those names are already listed on the form. And I'm just wondering how those names, how those people get chosen and if they change, and just, I would like to be aware of whatever decisions are being made on behalf of the high school.
Yeah, so at the organizational meeting is when there may be a change made to that committee structure. And then people can vie for those spots. Typically, the State High School League updates will come through the School Board Association as well. But we can certainly provide them. They provide, I think it's a monthly report to us based upon the actions of the State High School League Board of Directors.
Okay. Do you know, I mean, I know Chair Sebring is listed as the main representative, so he's not here to answer the question, but how often does he get asked to vote on something?
Typically once a year. And it's basically to look at, because they have a Board of Directors structure that has, it's actually legislatively approved about who gets to sit on the State High School League Board of Directors. And they might have a new person that leaves the Board of Directors and somebody or a couple of people that are looking to fill that spot. That's typically the only time they have asked a board member that to vote.
Sure. And how about the student rep and the parent rep that are chosen on the advisory committee? Is that?
From
how
the
does that-
district or from the State High School League?
On the Minnesota State High School League.
Those are chosen by Mark Ochterkirk.
Okay.
And we try to find someone who's a junior going to be a senior that has had experience with high school activities. And the parent representative is typically, he'll put out an inquiry to parents at the fall meeting, if you will,
Yep.
of parents that are there for the mandatory activities meeting about parents that are interested.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So any further discussion, questions on that one? So we have it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, thank you. Roll call.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 5-0 pass.
Very good, thank you. Item F, Minnesota School Board Association membership.
Pretty self-explanatory. This is just your annual membership to the School Board Association to keep up to date with policy revisions as well as professional development opportunities for board members.
Yes, and I will just say, I think this one is well worth it. For what it's worth, we see a lot of value in that, so I'll do this one. I move that the board approve membership to the Minnesota School Boards Association for the 2024-2025 school year.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that one? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Item G, schools advocating for fair funding.
So this
Mr.
is
Elston?
formerly Schools for Equity in Education. I was part of a small group of members within this that have changed some of the structure within it, including the name. It more accurately reflects what the organization does, which is indeed advocating for fair funding, particularly for districts that have lower tax bases. What we're always seeking is some sort of equity between what larger districts get and what we get, because the zip code of where your students reside shouldn't matter with the amount of state funding that's received. And so I've been a real advocate on this, on behalf of this effort. But we've made some changes. So again, what you're being asked to approve tonight is just simply our ongoing membership with what is now called the Schools Advocating for Fair Funding.
I guess because it is $7,000 membership fee, it seems like a lot to me, but not really in the grand scheme of the whole budget. So is there a way to be more specific in what it's worth?
So that what we get for the $7,000 annually as a district is we have a lobbyist that works at the Capitol to try to, again, fight for this topic with our legislators. There's also quarterly meetings that provide some professional development. The other part that is incredibly critical for us is the data. It's a great data source, and so there's a lot of comparative work that's done with the staff at SAFF that helps us compare. So when you look at how much our taxpayers are paying versus someone who's in a more metropolitan school district, it makes a case for the lack of funding equity that's there. And so again, I think the membership again, lobbying is the biggest part of it, so that we have a well-known lobbyist at the Capitol that's advocating for us.
You know, and I might just comment, I remember, so I was more involved with the C group and would attend some of those sessions. But I think like the Ag to School credit, I'm sure there were other lobbyists involved, but that's a prime
Absolutely.
example of where that really supported our district and helped our taxpayers
Yeah.
here in rural districts, right, where we have ag land. So C, the former group, you know, was a key part of lobbying and educating legislators on that topic. So well worth the $7,000 that particular year and several probably since then.
I testified 11 times on behalf of the Ag to School credit, and it was because we had a really good lobbyist that was able to get superintendents in front of committee members. And again, we think about the impact that for our community, the Ag to School credit is huge. It takes the burden off of our agricultural landowners. So just that value in itself of being able to move that legislation is a part that makes it worth it as well.
And I don't recall, but this is not unlike what we've paid in the past for this particular
No,
organization. I
this
don't think.
actually is a bit reduced from what we used to pay.
Okay,
The fee structure was changed. We made some changes within the operational staff, which has allowed us to kind of reduce that, but still get
Yep.
those same pieces.
good. Good discussion. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Move that the board approve membership for the 2024-2025 school year to schools advocating for fair funding.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item G, policy revisions. Reminder, this is a second reading on these, so we saw these a month ago. Any questions or comments? All right.
Well, sorry.
Oh, please.
Just a little
Yep.
thing, nothing major, but I just noticed in reviewing the public data subject requests, there is under costs, it does say that public data charges for copies need to be paid in advance. So I know in the past the district has had to assume costs for data requests, but anyway, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so if we provide one copy for review at no charge to those requesting. But if someone were to request a copy that was going to leave our district office, then indeed they would have to pay up front for us to make that copy.
Got it. Okay.
Good clarification. All right. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the policy revisions as presented.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item I, resolution for establishing dates for filing affidavits for candidacy.
So what you're being asked to approve tonight is we have a filing period that is coming up, July 30th through August 13th. We do indeed have 3 members that are up for election. The seat of Ms. Bandel, Mr. Jensen, and Mr. Schuster are all up for election in November of 2024. And so those folks that are interested in being a candidate need to file at the district office between July 30th and close of day, 4 o'clock on August 13th.
And that's at the new district office.
Yes, 333 East School Street.
Thank you. All right. I don't think there's any discussion on this particular one. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy.
Second.
All right. The motion has been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote. So Eric, if you would.
Yep. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 5-0 pass.
All right. Motion passes. And item J, gifts to the district. Love this item. There's
Yes,
always
I do
something
too.
on it.
It's always a great report. Just want to call one item to your attention. We have an ongoing partnership with the Mayo Clinic Health Systems. This is part of the $15,000 that you're being asked to approve tonight, is their annual Career Pathways installment, if you will.
Nice.
They've been a great partner with us, and in turn, We have a very high-functioning nursing and medical careers program as one of our pathways right now. And so in speaking with Dr. Ray Robley here not too long ago, they're very pleased with their investment and feel like it's having an immediate impact for our students and community. So.
Excellent. Yep. Yep, it's always a good one.
I move that the board approve the resolution of acceptance of gifts as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Roll call.
This is a roll call. Eric?
Yep. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 5-0 pass.
Good thing you're keeping track, Eric. All right. Do I need a motion to adjourn or what?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Second, anybody?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned.